Hello, champs, and welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast presented by Keeping Karlsson. I am your host, Louis Ezekiel, joined tonight by the one, the only, Elon Dubrovsky. Elon, how are you doing this fine Thursday evening?
This fine Thursday. I'm doing great, Louis. Glad to get that catchphrase in. Really excited to come back and, fill in for Ben on this week's Short Shifts. We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get right into it here. And I want to start with one of maybe the more surprising outcomes of the night so far. I know we do a lot of this mid-game stuff, but this one seems more or less wrapped up here. And that is the New Jersey Devils absolutely blitzing the Pittsburgh Penguins. Another rough night for Tristan Jarry and two hot lines for the Devils, I should say. Obviously, the Bratt line and then the Hughes line, both very productive here this evening. Ben has accused me of being a Devils hater, so I want to make sure I'm going on record here early and saying a really impressive performance by the Devils.
Yeah, I mean, before Bratt and Hughes were together and were doing so well together, and as someone who has Jesper Bratt in the cacuffle, I was maybe a little bit worried that, with these new lines, maybe splitting them up, maybe that wouldn't be as good for Bratt, but that was quashed pretty quickly because he came back from his injury and this long break from the Devils. Feels like they haven't played in forever. And 2 goals right away to start the game on his line with Nico Hischier, which is a guy who I was able to get as a free agent in Tier 1 of the cacuffle. He was dropped because the Devils weren't playing very much. So anyone listening, if you are in a league where Nico Hischier was dropped, I think the window's closing fast, right? But he might still be available for you. So definitely pause the pod and go grab him because he's having himself a night, goal and 2 assists. That power play, where, that's where they get the exposure to Hughes. And just recently, I see a goal Hischier assisted by Hughes and Bratt on the power play. By the way, another interesting thing about that power play, man, it's so interesting to talk about the Devils because we haven't talked about them for so long. And they've gotten all these players back. Dougie Hamilton is back. So Jesper Bratt is back. Both of them were out. I think Andreas Johnsson was out, but I mean, no one cares about him at this point. But also Dougie Hamilton returning, but he doesn't have any points, and Damon Severson has a goal on the power play from the top power play unit. So I wonder if this is just, Hamilton being eased back in, or maybe they liked what they saw with what Severson was doing while Hamilton was out. So this is definitely an interesting development. Kind of reminds me of like Jacob Chychrun in Arizona, how it seemed like he was like the obvious top power play guy, and then all of a sudden Gossip Hair took the job, and you're like, that's not going to last, and then it did. I'm not saying that's going to happen here for the Devils, but it's something I'm watching. It's obviously going well so far today against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I would still be a little cautious there, certainly just because, Hamilton definitely has a longer track record of success. So I think we can count on him taking over, more fully soon. But yeah, could be just an issue of, getting his feet back under him. They've all been off for quite a while, but certainly Hamilton has been out longer than the others. One more name worth mentioning, I think, on this Devils team, and probably the least owned of the real effective, players who are producing right now, is Igor Sharangovich. He was down only at 9%, which was surprising to me given the hot streak he's been on. Another goal tonight. If Hischier isn't available, Sharangovich might be a guy that you want to take a look at. Just because he has been on quite the run as well, lining up next to Jack Hughes at even strength, and Hughes very much, Hughes and Hischier kind of a couple, top overall picks who are now starting to break out a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. If you could get Sharangovich, I feel like he's someone we've mentioned a lot on the podcast, so I don't think anyone's surprised to hear us mentioning him. One guy we haven't mentioned for a while is the other player on that line with Hughes and Sharangovich, Dawson Mercer, who also has a goal today. So there's a lot of fun over here for anyone rostering Devils. And so I think you want to get in on basically anyone in this top 6. So just to summarize, it's Hughes with Sharangovich and Mercer, and then Bratt with Hischier and Pavel Zacha, who's also getting points today. Obviously, you want to, make sure to get the top power play first if you can. But if not, any of those other top 6ers you want, and that leaves like your Janssens and your Tatars. Those are the ones you can forget about. The Nathan Bastians, who at some point he was getting rostered in some leagues. But yeah, those 6 guys, I'm interested in all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And nothing cures your terrible goalie woes like, coming out the gate and scoring a whole bunch. I think they really had the Penguins on their heels today. And I think it's worth bringing up kind of the flip side of that coin. As impressive as the Devils have been, this is another data point here for a bit of a cold streak for Tristan Jarry, who was a fantasy darling to start the season. He started so hot, was playing so many games. but really has struggled lately. Sub 900 save percentage in 8 of his last 15 games, and now 5 of his last 7 starts, including being pulled in the second after the Devils scored their 5th goal here on Thursday. He also sports a negative goals saved above average in 9 of those last 14 games, meaning an average goalie facing similar shots from similar places would have performed better. Started as hot as any goalie in the league, but is really in the midst of a midseason swoon. Should GMs be worried? Is now a time to buy low potentially if he's struggling, but we think he's gonna, come back and improve upon what he's doing? What are your thoughts on Jarry? Advice for Jarry owners in this challenging moment?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can't predict. That's the thing with goalies. It's so impossible. But it is weird. There's a bunch of goalies who were so amazing to start the year that all of a sudden are just blowing up their managers. Like Jack Campbell was like one of the top guys. Now he's been struggling a little bit. John Gibson, we talked about on the show. Alex Nedeljkovic had that great start. He's really been struggling lately. Mike Smith, I don't know. He had a really good start for like 3 games and then got injured. And now it doesn't seem like he's an NHL goalie anymore. So I don't know what's going on with Jarry. I feel like he's done so well for so long, and also he's like super entrenched as a starter that I definitely wouldn't be dropping him. Like, that's not even a question. Obviously you're going to be a little bit concerned, but I'm not like that concerned. I feel like it's only 3 games now, like 3 bad games in a row. Maybe they should have given DeSmith the start today. So I don't know, like maybe in the very short term DeSmith like gets the next game for Pittsburgh. But if I had Jarry, I wouldn't be too concerned, but definitely it would be on my radar, and I'd be like, I really hope this doesn't continue. Don't forget, these are games against Toronto, Carolina, and now this New Jersey team that was like the most rested team of all time. So I wonder if it was just like some bad luck. Maybe the Penguins aren't playing so well against these strong teams, and that's something to be concerned about. But at the same time, hopefully Pittsburgh gets some easier competition to help Jarry get some confidence back.
Yeah, a lot of these guys you mentioned have been carrying quite a heavy workload. UC Saros is another name we could add to that list, who has been pretty average lately, not maybe with really bad starts necessarily, but not kind of the really sterling performances we had seen previously. So, maybe, and Jack Campbell obviously had started a ton of games in a row and then started to fall off. And now Mrazek is getting some more starts. We'll talk about the Toronto goalies a little bit later, but yeah, it could also just be an issue of maybe being a little bit overworked.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Let's talk about a few injuries here. We've got some injury updates as well as some new ones that were recently announced. We'll start at Columbus, where Zach Werenski suffered an upper body injury of some kind. He's not traveling with the team for at least this 2-game road trip that Columbus is on right now. They are up big on Florida right now, and they have got Carolina, I believe, tomorrow as well. This opens up another opportunity for Adam Boqvist, who has been the next man up in the occasions where Zach Werenski has had to be out for, a few game stretches so far this season. On those 5 goals, he's managed an assist and a few hits, so nothing super, but good to see him get in on some of that offense. Boqvist not super widely owned, so always a good opportunity, and especially lately, I feel like with the offense that we've been seeing out of Columbus, like they've actually been a pretty exciting offensive team over the last several weeks, especially now that Laine is playing every game like he is playing in Helsinki, I think is how I put it on Twitter. Just been really exciting to see Laine recapture some of his high scoring form that he had for a while there in Winnipeg. And the cast of characters around him, especially Boone Jenner, I think has been really exciting this season as well. Maybe besides Jesper Bratt, one of the most out of nowhere great seasons that we're seeing.
Yeah, Columbus, this is super impressive, right? It's like 5 minutes to go, and they're now ahead 6-3 against the Panthers. So you could have made a lot of money if you bet on this game, especially because the Blue Jackets goalie is once again JF Berube, who shouldn't even be in the league. Like, no one would have expected him. He's not even the 3rd stringer. He's the 4th stringer. And look at him having another gem of a game. He's going to get another win. He's already becoming someone that, I don't know, it's hard to recommend riding him just because Merzlikins is like back with the team and could be back any game now. And, eventually Tarasov, or I know that Korpisalo's on the IR, so I'm not sure like if those guys are still going to be a while, in which case maybe Berube can stick around as a backup, but you got to imagine they're going to try to get Merzlikins back in there. But yeah, as far as some of the other players you mentioned, so Adam Boqvist taking over on the top power play, I mean, it's a good spot. Like, there's some good players here. You know, Voracek, Jenner, Bjorkstrand, and Line are the forwards on this power play unit. No goals today. Of the 6 goals by Columbus, none of them were on the power play. But like I said, Boqvist at least got a power play assist. But Columbus still plays 2 games left this week. So if you're listening to this on Friday, you could get a Friday-Sunday stream, which is always harder to find, late in the week. But, I mean, don't expect anything crazy, but I think he's someone somewhat interesting that's rosterable while Werenski is injured. Did I cover everything? I guess I'll mention Bjorkstrand, right? He's someone who's just like been hot and cold all season, so a goal and assist today against Florida. So nice for him. Just it's another great day to be rostering Blue Jackets. Blue Jackets so far and Devils are your 2 teams you want to have people on right now. Yeah,
pretty exciting. Bjorkstrand's goal, a bit of a gift because it looks like it was an empty netter with 6 minutes left to go in the game. So Bruno doing some favors for Columbus scorers, giving them a nice opportunity there. But yeah, they had gotten up to 5-3. So I can understand why you might pull the goalie there, especially with the offense that Florida's got, but outmatched today, by that sizzling offense out of Columbus. So let's look at another injury that we talked about last show, which was the injury to Tony DeAngelo. We got confirmation today that he would be out with this upper body injury, and I guess it sounds like a midsection injury of some kind. He's going to be out for about a month. We talked about Slavin as an opportunity on Tuesday, but given this news that TDA is out for 4 weeks, around that amount, should that add any urgency to people running out to add Jacob Slavin?
So I think so. Like, I don't think it's like 100% guarantee that Slavin holds that top power play the whole time. Either way, he's going to get huge minutes. He already has been getting huge minutes all season, but in this last game against Philly, he played 29 minutes and 1 second, and like the game before 27 minutes. So we can be looking at a huge amount of ice time, and you're bound to get, if you're playing half the game and Carolina's the team that they are that scores so many goals, you're very likely to get at least a point. He's now on a run of 5 points in his last 5 games, but it's like, even if you go back in the box in the game logs, you're seeing lots of points from Slavin recently. Now he's got a great opportunity, so I really just can't imagine a reason why you wouldn't want him unless it's like a super shallow league. Obviously, keep watching the lines, and if he loses his power play spot, I think he's still rosterable just because of this ice time and how crucial he is to the team. So yeah, sucks for Tony DeAngelo and for people who are rostering him. I actually have him in my Dynasty League. Here's a new trick I've learned that I never knew before, but I went into the group chat and I complained and whined about it. And I was like, man, right before the playoffs and DeAngelo's injured, poor me, just wanting sympathy. And then one of the rebuilding teams reached out to me and was like, hey, I've got Klingberg. I see you need somebody. We worked out a deal. I just sent a couple of picks in 2023, got Klingberg. So I'm not even so worried about DeAngelo now. I hope he doesn't come back because I don't even have roster space for him right now, or cap room. So I don't know, just a tip: whine and cry, and maybe you might be able to get something.
Yeah, well, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So if you let people know what you need and that you're short on D, then somebody who is looking to offload one may go ahead and reach out to you. Let me ask you, out of a few defensemen that we've been talking about on your show and on our show recently, who've kind of assumed new power play 1 positions, out of Boqvist, Slavin, and Josh Morrissey, who interests you the most?
Ooh. Okay. Well, Morrissey is long-term potential, right? This could be because in the Cupful, we still have, I think, 5 matchups after this one, or 4 matchups before the playoffs. So by then, DeAngelo could be back. What was it? Boqvist? Yeah, Werenski could be back. But Morrissey could just keep holding that spot, and he's been doing really well. So I'm just going to have him number 1. Then give me Slavin. Boqvist is just a fun stream, I think he has potential, but he's not someone that I'm expecting to go bonkers, right? So and I'd have Severson ahead of Boqvist as well.
Oh yeah, interesting one to add.
So what do we have? So what did I say then? So Morrissey, Slavin, Severson, Boqvist. That's my order. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's about how I'd put him. I do think that Severson maybe belongs in that 4th spot just because because he at least has been productive, and we could see Hamilton take back his spot just as quickly as Werenski returns, and Werenski is obviously the no-doubter power play 1 guy for Columbus. So yeah, I think they belong. Those 2 are pretty close to me, but I think I agree with your list overall there. One more injury that we wanted to discuss, and this one kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't see anything about this up until it was announced, but Jared McCann placed on injured reserve with an upper body injury. They hope that he is not out for too long. Yanni Gourde also was a game time decision for Thursday. In the meantime, that means Calle Jarnkrok hits line 1, power play 1. He's been on a nice little roll here, 6 points in the last 7 games. What do you think about this? Is this one of those kind of injuries like, that just hurts the whole team and makes you a little down on all the players involved? Or is this an exciting chance for Jarnkrok, even if it means most of their offense is getting, shuffled onto this top line here? How do we interpret? What should we do with this information?
Yeah, Seattle's been one of these weird teams where I've had trouble following them too closely this season. I don't know what it is. None of the players are really popping. You could ask me how many points does Eberle have? He could be on a 60-point pace or a 40-point pace, and I wouldn't be surprised with either. I know he was hot for a while. I'm actually just going to check here because now with McCann out, I guess Eberle is kind of the star forward left. He has 30 points in 51 games. Oh, so 48-point pace. There you go. So a little bit lower than maybe I was thinking. So really everyone on this team is boring. I know that Giordano is having a good run lately, so he's probably the most exciting roster guy to have on Seattle, and that includes their goalies, who have been absolutely terrible. So then the question was, is Calle Jarnkrok interesting? If the schedule works for you, I'm not dropping everything and rushing and tripping over myself and whatever other cliches I could come up with to get Calle Jarnkrok, but what does he have? 21 points in 41 games. Like you said, he had a assist in the last game against the Islanders. He got top power play time, which is nice. I think 80% of the power play time. So that's a bit of an increased opportunity. He's had a little bit of a run lately, like you said. So sure, in a deep league, I guess you can go for Jarnkrok. I'm interested to check the schedule really quickly just to see if it's even worthwhile to give this recommendation.
3 games next week.
3 games next week. Okay. Plus you can get a Sunday stream. So yeah, maybe grab the Sunday. Ooh, is it a wraparound? Let's see. Do they play Monday next week? They do not. No. So, okay. So you can maybe stream them in for Sunday. Honestly, then drop them. And then if you want to grab them back for Wednesday, depending on who your other options are next week, and then drop them again. And then maybe you could get them on the weekend of Saturday, Sunday, which is already going into March. Maybe that's worthwhile. But by then, maybe McCann is back.
Yeah, obviously for Seattle, they certainly hope to get their leading scorer back as soon as they can. We've been seeing, actually, it seems like a lot of that scoring has been coming either from the top power play or from that second line. Not a whole lot of even strength action on that top line, it seems like lately. But yeah, maybe Jarnkrok can bring something that, those other guys on the top line besides McCann have been missing a little bit.
One thing that's interesting about Seattle, this is something I think I've mentioned on the podcast before. Something I like to do is to go to Frozen Tools or frozenpool.dobbersports.com. And on the main page, they for every team just list a couple players who are hot and a couple players that are cold. So whenever I'm thinking about a team, I like to just kind of get a quick summary of what's going on there. And Seattle right now has none in the hot players. Not even Jarnkrok, I guess, just didn't meet the cut. Grubauer, Adam Larson, and Carson Soucy are listed in cold, which isn't fair. I'm sure that the algorithm isn't counting Adam Larson's hits and blocks. But anyway, yeah, that goes to show you how exciting Seattle is right now.
What's been interesting, too, is at times that hot and cold list has had players on the same line, like McCann and Eberle, with McCann in the hot and Eberle in the cold. So you're like, how are you, just got to participate a little more, bud. You got to do something to get yourself on there. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll be talking about a couple different goalies as well as a hot streak in Arizona. You are listening to Short Shifts. Hey, Elon, I wanted to spend a little bit of time here talking about our sponsor, HelloFresh. HelloFresh is a farm-fresh, pre-portioned cooking delivery service. They bring pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. HelloFresh offers the flexibility you need to easily customize your order online or in the app. You can easily change your delivery day, your food preferences, your plan size. You can skip a week whenever you need to. We've been HelloFresh subscribers for a while, and when we're away for a week on vacation, we can get it set to, skip a week there so that we don't have food rotting on our porch. We've actually had it delivered at a vacation destination so that we don't have to go shopping and we can just cook up the stuff that they deliver there. Really cool opportunities. They cut back on time spent in the kitchen with meals ready in about 30 minutes or less. Plus, you can get quick and easy meals that have 20-minute recipes if you're in a hurry, low prep, easy cleanup options that provide an even faster route for putting food on the table. And you look good doing it. The outcomes the instructions are easy to follow and the outcomes look great. You can really make yourself look like a star in the kitchen when you are cooking with HelloFresh. I actually have a nice deal for you. You can go to HelloFresh.com/Carlson16 and use the code Carlson16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That is HelloFresh.com/Carlson16 and use code Carlson16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. Once again, HelloFresh is our great sponsor for today's episode, and they are going to equip you with everything you need to be a superstar in the kitchen. That is why they are America's #1 meal kit.
And 16 for Carlson, that's the fewer than the number of days we're going to have to wait for Erik Karlsson to come back to the roster on San Jose, because I heard that he's less than 2 weeks away. So excited about that and excited about HelloFresh. But okay, Lewis, let's get back into it. What do we got next?
All right. Well, we want to spend a little bit of time talking about some goalies, and we're going to start with a guy that you were expressing some disappointment at having missed out on. Our good friend Ben grabbed this guy in Cupful, and that is none other than continual whipping boy, Jordan Binnington. He managed to beat a crummy Philadelphia team on the second night of their back-to-back. He received some pretty effusive praise from Berube. Maybe to bolster the mental side of his game. Maybe it's goalie contract politics, but, he did manage to get that win. We were, thinking that maybe if he got the win, against New Jersey coming out of the All-Star game break, that maybe he could get a few more starts for himself. That didn't happen. Husso continued to dominate the net, but, given a really nice opportunity, against a pretty simple, straightforward team, that has been struggling, has a lot of injured players, was playing Martin Jones for the second night in a row. How much are we willing to look into this? Do we think that Binnington is going to be in for more of a share, like a 50-50 starting set here moving forward? Or should Husso managers be worried at all?
I just think that Coach Berube has made it very clear that he's a big fan of Jordan Binnington. He thinks that Binnington is a winner. He won a Stanley Cup, Lewis, and I think he wants Binnington to be his guy going into the playoffs. So he's doing whatever he can to try to get his confidence back. So I would definitely be a little concerned as a Husso manager, just that I think even if Binnington stunk in that game against Philly, I still think that eventually Binnington would just keep getting chances. I guess eventually he'd burn a bridge. But yeah, the reason I was especially disappointed was just because I had a whole plan that morning that I was like, I had my player ready to drop in Cupful. I was going to do a stream that day. I knew it. And then I said to myself, you know what? If Binnington gets confirmed as the starter, I think he'd be a good stream, because if he does well, maybe he'll also get the next game. And so I had that whole plan in my brain, and then stupid work got in the way, and I had to go to meetings and stuff. And then next thing I know, a meeting finished, I went to check, and already the goalie had been announced, and Ben had already snatched him up, and now he's got himself a guy. That said, obviously Binnington has struggled a lot this year, and it's really hard to get into a goalie's mental state. We know Binnington is a good goalie. He's had really good runs of success, even just earlier this season. So it's not like you just lose all your talent. I think especially as a goalie, the mental game is more prominent than even the skaters. So maybe he's back. Maybe it was just an easier game against a depleted Philly team. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think the one thing we know for sure is that Coach Berube likes him a lot and wants to give him chances. So as long as Binnington can have a good game, I think that Berube will keep putting him in.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I'm with you there. It does seem like, the way he's been talking about Binnington is he's sort of been waiting for that opportunity for him to kind of get his head on straight and get, I think there's no surprise that he earned this start, as a great chance to kind of get himself back on track, right? So yeah, I think that was sort of the goal here. And now Berube has a way to say, hey, he played really good in that last game. Maybe he deserves another start here. It could be just as much of a stinker as we've seen from some of his recent starts when he's up against a team that isn't starting their backup goalie in the second straight game and isn't, depleted by injuries. But, it's worth thinking about, definitely, keeping an eye on Binnington here. If he can go on a bit of a run and earn back some of that trust, I could definitely see it shifting, closer to a 50-50 setup. Another interesting back and forth that we've been having is Peter Mrazek got his second start in the last 3 games, Toronto has a 4-game week, and I definitely would not be surprised to see Jack Campbell get the next start. But after that really, really impressive start, you mentioned Jack Campbell at the start of the show as one of the goalies who has been struggling a little bit lately after going on, quite a big workload. And it's been especially acute for the Leafs during this recent run. Since December 1st, the Leafs have the league's worst save percentage overall. So a great October, a great November, and it's been very choppy ever since. Now Mrazek just managed to get a 3-1 victory against the high-flying Minnesota Wild. They got 1 goal against from that red-hot second line with Fiala and Boldy and Gaudreau. But other than that, he managed to shut the door. Are we thinking that we'll continue to see a bit more of an even split here between Campbell and Mrazek, at least until Campbell maybe rests up a little bit and regains his form?
Yeah, I mean, when Brian and I were talking about this on the podcast, he kind of pointed out that when Mrazek has been healthy, they have been doing close to a 50-50 split. Like maybe that was the plan the whole time. It just didn't look like it because Mrazek was injured. And so Campbell got that really big run earlier in the season and he did so well. But yeah, Campbell's been struggling, but also Mrazek's been struggling, right? He had this good game against Minnesota. Before that, he led in 5 goals against Montreal, which obviously a lot of people probably thought that was an easy start, but they didn't realize this is the new Montreal Canadiens with Martin St. Louis as the coach. And now all of a sudden they're like one of the best teams in the league, apparently. But yeah, I just think that the Leafs might be going closer to 50-50. I'd still lean Campbell long term. Like I think he's the guy that they expect to be their starter, and they'd love to just get him back to, his form from November and December. But for now, like Mrazek seems like a good enough stream, though, like you said, like probably Campbell gets the next game this week. So I don't know if you really hold on to Mrazek. I think it's just the kind of thing that, yeah, they're probably going to not give either of them a heavy workload. And so you have to manage that. Like manage your expectations if you're rostering either of these guys.
Yeah, I think a good opportunity when he is, available and, otherwise you can probably afford to let him go. I don't think, unless goalies are really, really, really valuable in your leagues, I don't know that it's worthwhile holding on to a guy who might, is likely only to get half the starts, and those starts may not be great, like you said. Just one side note, I didn't have this in the show notes, but just wanted to make sure our listeners were aware too. You talked about those high-flying Montreal Canadiens. They did suffer a bit of a setback in that most recent game with injuries to Paul Byron and Josh Anderson, who has been part of that really hot top line. I believe he was replaced by Mike Hoffman during that game. We don't have a ton of information for how long Anderson is going to be injured for, or at least nothing that I saw. But keep an eye on that. Obviously, that's a bit of a disappointment because Anderson had been really on fire. He had that huge game to start things off, I believe, on Monday. So just something to keep an eye on to see how long Anderson may be out for. But some really nice production from him in the meantime, and hopefully he can get back in there soon because it's just been really great to see some exciting hockey out of Montreal for the first time in a while.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Josh Anderson is he's been good, like you said, on that line with Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. Cole Caulfield might still be available in some listeners' leagues. Like, he was in free agency in all my leagues up to, like, a couple weeks ago. His stat log is amazing right now. Like, he's got 8 points in his last 4 games, 5 shots in the last game, that win against Buffalo. So hopefully, like, Josh Anderson being hurt, if he's actually out a while, doesn't, like, affect things. But at this point, I think you'd be pretty crazy not to rush and grab Caulfield if he's still available, because he's flying high right now, and I don't see a reason to not just hope that this can keep up at least somewhat. Like, yeah, whatever he's scoring on, maybe, like, whatever, he has all these goals, 4 goals in his last 4 games, not sustainable, blah, 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 high shooting percentage, but he is taking shots. So it's not as if we're seeing a guy getting, like, 2 shots a game, but then scoring 1. Like, we're looking at, like, 5 and 3 shots per game. So he's really interesting to me right now, and definitely someone you want back on your roster if you can get him. Yeah,
there's regressing to the mean, and then there's like screaming over to the other side of the graph, which is kind of what he's been doing. But like you said, it's not like it's just been, just a shooting percentage bender. He's been earning these opportunities. So that's great to see. One more player I wanted to talk about who is much more widely available than Cole Caulfield that might be interesting to you is Nick Schmaltz. And I just want to know, like, are we buying his production here? He's been getting the best deployment available in Arizona, lining up with Travis Boyd and Clayton Keller on line 1. He's been getting power play 1 time. He's got 4 goals and 3 assists with 1 of each on the power play on just over 10 shots during these last 6 games, I believe. Obviously, he's not going to keep shooting 40%, but Could we see Schmaltz become a better than waiver fodder 55 to 60 point pace for the remainder of the season? Is this a worthwhile guy to grab in deeper leagues? At only 6% rostered, he's widely available for GMs who need to plug that open spot, and the Coyotes have Friday, Sunday games remaining this week, although only 2 games next week against Colorado and Ottawa. So maybe not a long-term hold here, or maybe someone that you stream in and out of your lineup, but does he move the needle for you at all with this recent hot run?
I mean, he's definitely interesting. And like you said, Arizona plays Friday, Sunday against Vegas and Winnipeg. So Vegas doesn't have Leonard. I don't know how good their goaltending is going to be. It's either going to be Brossoit or Thompson probably, or maybe Leonard will come back. Actually, I heard that he was at skating. And then anyways, Winnipeg's not the most amazing defensive team. So it's 2 decent opportunities. I would definitely stream him in. I'm not going to say that now this is it. Nick Schmaltz is a superstar, but he's been playing with Clayton Keller, like you said, and Keller's been good. We were talking about Travis Boyd earlier in the season and a run that he was on. So I'm kind of interested in Schmaltz. He's a guy who doesn't shoot a ton, which limits his upside a little bit. And then keep in mind that after this Friday, Sunday slate, Arizona then doesn't play next week until Thursday, and they just go Thursday, Saturday. So I don't know if he's good enough to actually hold past this weekend if you can stream in someone else, but definitely interesting, definitely on a good run. And he was actually just dropped, Lewis, in our Best Buds League. I see Kevin, the Cacupful coordinator himself, dropped Nick Schmaltz, I guess probably just to bring someone in off of IR because he didn't even add someone just today, just right before we started recording this. So how big of a waiver bid are you going to be putting in to get Nick Schmaltz on your lineup?
Well, I am out of moves in the Best Buds League because unfortunately every time I play you, my team decides they all want to get injured at the same time. So I was trying to plug holes and it was all for naught because I'm toast in that particular matchup. But I would definitely be interested in him if I was still competitive. That Friday, Sunday is very appealing. I know that Friday and Sunday this week are busier than the Friday, Sundays that we've seen in weeks previous. So it's not, full on late week streamagami, but definitely someone that I might put a buck or two on just to be able to pull in for those games. But yeah, the schedule next week is not super appealing. So I might not be going all in or dropping someone of particular value. But if I've just got a rotating spot on the bottom of my lineup for this week, I think that he is someone that is definitely worth a grab. You talked about him being a distributor and not a shooter, and I think that's true, but he had one heck of a feed to Clayton Keller for the first game in the match against the Kings yesterday. A little bit on the Kings defense for not playing so aggressively, but was just a great feed and was a no doubter as soon as it left his stick that Keller was going to be able to bury it. So, at least the distributing side of things has looked pretty good as of late. And with that, Elon, we are out of time here for today. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. It has been a blast to have you. Appreciate you filling in for Ben, who I hope that we will see back behind the mic here in short order too. And we'll get to hear from you, obviously, with Brian on the Mega Show on Sunday. But thanks so much for being here with us.
Yeah, it was a blast. Now I'm looking through our free agency in our Best Buds League to see how Nick Schmaltz stacks up to the other available players. And honestly, all my watch lists got taken this week. Everyone stinks. So now I'm especially interested in, hey, John Reed, if you're listening, he's my co-manager. We got to talk about Nick Schmaltz and whether or not we want to put a bid on this guy. But okay, this has been a blast. It's always crazy how fast these shows go. Whenever I join on short shifts, it's well, we just started. You were talking about Philly and how they couldn't score any goals against Binnington, and then I was thinking, well, don't we have to talk about Cam Atkinson and his cold streak? But I guess that's gonna have to wait for the Sunday show, so that's coming up on the feed. So make sure you're subscribed to Keeping Karlsson.
Absolutely. And please give us a follow on Twitter at ShortShiftsKK. You can find my co-host Elon and Brian at Keeping Karlsson, Dave Benton of the Stream Scheme at NHL Stream Scheme. Also recommend you follow the Game Day suite of accounts at Game Day Lines, at Game Day Goalies, and at Game Day News for all of your up-to-the-minute information. Please visit the great sites where we research our episodes at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, and Natural Stat Trick. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach, and until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.